So I live in the DMV area. I don't know what's going on with this camera, but it looks kind of weird. But I'm gonna try to make it as straight as possible. But I want in this video I want to talk about something that I'm noticing, especially with young black men. Some a little bit older as well, but mostly young black men. And something that I've noticed compared to other black ethnicities, right? When I say black men, I'm speaking about African Americans, comparing them to, Africans like Nigerians, South Africans, Jamaicans, or not necessarily Jamaicans, but Caribbean. I've noticed some differences, right? And I think one thing I'm pretty sure that you notice, especially if you're African American, some Africans coming over here and they seem to be outperforming African Americans in many ways, especially academically and financially. And I'm gonna tell you what I've seen, right? So I'm 38 years old, right? So I got a pretty good amount of experience to kind of look around and see a little bit of what's going on. So I worked a lot of different jobs, and I've noticed you have a lot of young black men working a lot of warehouse jobs. Okay, they're working at these warehouse jobs, lifting boxes, driving forklifts, cherry pickers, working at jobs like UPS, Amazon, distribution centers, and then you got some black men who might drive a truck and stuff like that. But now there's nothing wrong with these jobs, but I notice the very large concentration of young black men and women as well working these very low skilled jobs. And some of them are maybe in their early to mid 20s, Um, and it had me thinking, I've watched a few other videos on YouTube of especially black men complaining about these warehouse jobs and how much they hate these jobs. And people leave comments saying, well, why don't you get your CDL, which is fine too. There's nothing wrong with those things. But I think one issue is, I think there is an issue with our culture. I think fatherlessness is one of the biggest issues. I think a lot of these black men, young black men, don't have fathers around. They don't really have black men growing up in their lives, good, positive black men to help them navigate. And they wound up spending an excessive amount of time not necessarily developing their skills. When they're teenagers and when they're in their 20s, they spend a lot of time smoking, drinking, chasing females, listening to rap music, and not really coming up with a plan to where they want to go in the future. Not really going to school really. And I'm not saying that school is a promise, but they don't seem to really be as ambitious as they should to reach their highest potential as possible, if you understand what I'm saying. Now, I'm not saying that this is all black men, but even in the DMV area, I live in the DMV area where we tend to have the most educated blacks. And even in this area, there's a very, very high concentration of black men working these very low skilled warehouse jobs, lifting boxes, doing all this grunt work, driving a truck, which is not too bad. I consider driving a truck a level up a little bit, but still it requires a lot of lifting boxes and sitting them in front of people's houses, and it's not too bad. I know some of them get paid pretty well, but I feel like there is a little bit of I'm trying to explain it the best way I can, but it just seemed to be a little bit of a lack of motivation. Like it seems like I don't know. It just seems like they don't. They kind. It's like they almost like they get stuck somewhere. They get kind of stuck in this same um, repetitive type of work where it's mostly just manual labor. And like I said, I know we need manual labor. It's different when you're a teenager in your early 20s, but you see some of these guys been doing this stuff for 20, 30 years, and I just feel like some of them may not have had strong male figures in their lives growing up, and when I compare them to some of my Nigerian friends who are Nigerian, and I look at them, and some of them may start off working those type of jobs as well, especially when they're young. But by the time they hit their mid to maybe late 20s, they have um, a bachelor's or a master's degree. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not the type of person that says that having a college degree automatically means you're going to be successful, because I understand that that's not true. But they do seem to have a little bit more drive than my African American friends. I do. If you're black, if you're an African American, and you have friends who are Nigerian, African, Caribbean, and then you have friends who are African American, I'm pretty sure you can see a difference. If you say you don't, you're probably being dishonest. If you're being honest, you can see something is different. And I think it's because of their culture. They kind of push their kids to reach their highest potential. I think a lot of it starts off in school. When I was in school, I'm not gonna say all the time, but it's not a uncommon thing for African American kids to complain about other African American kids or Black American kids bullying them or making fun of them for taking their academics um, seriously, or if they study or they don't want to hang out, they don't want to smoke, they don't want to drink, they don't want to, they just want to focus on their studies to get somewhere. They get accused of trying to be white. That still goes on even in 2025, unfortunately. And I don't think the same thing goes for other I don't want to say ethnicities, but other nationalities within the African diaspora, I guess you would call it. Like I said, this video is comparing African Americans to other African diaspora people, Africans, Caribbeans, South Americans. You know what I'm trying to say, and um, like I said, I honestly think that it's not an attack on single mothers neither, but I think it seems like they're not being prepared for the world really. I'm gonna tell you a quick story. I remember this was probably 7 years ago, maybe. I had a job interview had a job interview at a certain place, and I walked in with a suit and tie and slacks on, and the guy gave me the job. And one thing that he told me was he was impressed that I came in wearing, dressed kind of professional, because he said a lot of the guys coming in there wearing anything, wearing their pants sagging, t-shirt, sneakers, wearing Jordans to the job interview. And, I always remembered that. That always stuck with me, because I feel like it's the parents' fault. Like, I'm pretty sure he's not talking about teenage kids. Pretty sure he's probably talking about grown men. And I said, something is wrong there. If you have a issue in your community where, and like I said, I stay in the DMV area. If you have this issue where you got all these guys coming into the job interview wearing saggy pants, something is wrong with their upbringing. Somewhere along the line, especially when you become a teenager, right? Somewhere in your teenage years, somebody should have talked to you or taught you or told you, hey, this is, once you reach that age when it's time to get a job, somebody should tell you, hey, this is how you should dress for the interview. Just say, just wear, just wear. You don't have to wear a full suit. Even just wear like a button down or like a button up and some slacks and some dress shoes, or you can just wear like a polo shirt, like the 2 or 3 button shirt with some slacks and maybe like some dress sneakers or maybe some loafers. No tennis shoes, just maybe you don't have to wear actual dress shoes, but maybe like a pair of loafers, like some slip-on loafers, some slacks, a belt, and just tuck in like a polo shirt. It don't have to be expensive. You can buy something from Walmart. Just look kind of business casual. Don't look like don't dress like you on the street or like you going to a basketball game or something like that. And I don't know. It's just a thought. I don't know. Maybe y'all can tell me what y'all think about what I'm saying. I think that a lot of it plays a part in the single parent household. Even though I'm pretty sure not all of the households are like that, but I do think a lot of it comes from lack of positive male role models. So that's all I want to say.